Hello everybody, James here, Story Time with Dutch Mantell, and I'm very pleased to say we have a very special guest. Just before we get to him, we're going to do the plugs, the very, very quick version of it. I have 2 books, Dutch has 2 books. If you want those books signed by Dutch, not my books obviously, but his, you go to dirtydutchmantell with 2 L's at gmail.com and you make your request there. But for now, we have a wrestling god on our show. Dutch, would you like to introduce him?
Well, here's a guy I've been trying to get on here for forever. And I did him and Jerry's show. What's that show called, John? The show
Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw.
Yeah, Stories with Briscoe.
Somehow the Okie got his name ahead of the Texan. I'm not sure.
Yeah, great, great show. And John, welcome to Story Time with Dutch.
Dutch, thank you so much. I love you. I have been so lucky in my life to have so many great mentors and friends and people that influence me, in football and life and in wrestling. And you're one of the ones that had such a big influence on me. I had Skandor Akbar when I started in Texas and James Beard. I had you there, Barry Windham, Ron Simmons, and you meant the world to me. And you were as much fun as I could ever have traveling down the road. You were it. We had so much fun. Dutch at times just make up stories. I'm gonna make up a story. He just make up a story. It was some of the most entertaining stuff I've ever heard. And James, I love what you do. I'm a big fan of your show, your interview style, the way you interview people, the research you do. So I'm ready to get started with my friend Dutch.
John, remember we used to ride down the road and it would just be silence for a minute. I says, you was on that championship team with the Yankees when you won the World Series, right? And he'd take off. Oh, yeah. That Mickey Mantle was drunk all the time. He was a drunk, and that Roger Maris, and he'd just go on and on and on, and he'd just make a complete story, and he'd go like 3 or 4 minutes. And I don't know, it was just natural, but it did make the time go by a lot faster. And I've said, John, if you travel with somebody that you enjoy traveling with, the miles fly by. You have a good time. Here, let me ask you the first question I want to ask you. Do you remember me and you one time in Canada? I think it was Quebec City. I think you wrestled in the first match this kid named LeDuc.
Yes, I do.
And they ask you, John, do you mind kind of slipping him over a little bit? John said, no problem. Huh? It'll be fine. And the kid's only qualification to be in that match was the last name, LeDuc. And I stood outside the ring like this and watched it. And John, I'm going to say, and I've said it to you before, I have never seen a more thorough ass kicking in my life than John you put on that kid. So you remember that?
Oh, of course I do. I remember when George Steele came to me. He goes, "Hey, we've got this young guy," and you could tell he didn't want to tell me what we wanted to do. And he goes, "We want you to slip him over." I said, "That's fine, George." And he goes, "Yeah, it's kind of like a promoter's, like son or nephew or something. You understand? And sometimes you got to do a favor." I said, "George, it's fine." So they brought the young man in, and I said, "Hey, what would you like to do?" And he said, "Well, whatever you want." I said, "Well, do you want something like a small package, George?" And so kind of out of the blue. And George said, "Yeah, that's perfect." So I turned to the kid, I said, "How about a small package?" And he looked at me and goes, "I really don't want to do anything I haven't done before." I said, You don't know how to do a small package." He hadn't been trained. I don't know who he was. He could have been a great kid. I have no idea, but he hadn't even been trained. He didn't know how to run the ropes. He didn't know how to do any moves. And at one point, he shot me off and was going to call something, and he didn't call anything.
Yeah, and he forgot the spot, and it's one of those awkward spots. Everybody stops, and even the people stop. And they're looking, and then here come a clothesline out of hell, and from then on out, for the next 5 or 6 minutes, John, you beat that poor boy hack to death. Even the fans at ringside, they were going, "God, oh shit!" And then finally, John pinned him.
Oh, I hooked his leg with my leg, and I hooked his arm with my arm, and I put my head underneath his arm and pulled his leg and pulled him right on top of me and pinned myself.
John put himself in the small package.
I did. I put myself in the small package. He had no idea what I'd done. I just put myself in the small package. Hey, the next night they put him with Owen, and George told Owen the same thing. He said, "No, Owen, listen, He hasn't really been trained, so don't let him run the ropes.
Yeah.
Owen said, okay, no problem. So Owen locked up. He says, crisscross. So they start running the ropes. And it was the worst thing I've ever seen in the history of professional wrestling. And Owen thought it was the greatest thing he had ever done. And George's like, oh my.
Oh my God.
He could have been a good kid. I have no idea who he was, but he hadn't been trained nothing.
Well, he was related to Joe.
That's right. He's related to, I guess, Joe LeDuc, I guess.
A wrestling legend in that town. And hell, nobody knew him anyway, except for the last name.
That's right. The last name. He could have been Lance Von Erich, for all that they knew. He could have made it up. Nobody knew him.
Wow. But I had to get that story in because it was just too much. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question on a current WWE product. Whatever happened to your association with Mr. Corgan or Mr. Baron Corgan?
Yeah. I don't know if anything happened, Dutch. I mean, I don't know if just the story ran out or what. I like Baron.
Yeah, I like him too.
Baron's a smart guy, really smart guy. He's a very athletic, played pro football. The fit seemed perfect. And I don't know
didn't he play with Pat McAfee?
Yes, he did. They have a great friendship now to this day. That's one of the reasons they ended up working together as well. I think him and Pat are pretty good friends. Yeah, Baron's a very talented guy. And they brought me in just for kind of a one-off, and then I came back several times. So I don't know if anything happened or if it was just kind of the run of it. I didn't have really access to creative. I just did whatever they were telling me.
Yeah.
Well, and Baron, I liked working with Baron. I really like Baron. Baron's a good guy.
When I saw that, I said, that's probably the best thing they can do with him. Because to get him a little heat, put you with him, and then it went 3 weeks, and all of a sudden it just disappeared. That's what happens to some things.
Well, they called. They said, we're in Oklahoma. And I said, was the moon busy? I said, there aren't any place in the world I'd rather not go than Oklahoma. They go, well, you come cut a promo with Oklahoma people. I said, I'll fly myself in for that. So that's how the whole thing started.
Then you must be happy this year because Oklahoma beat Texas. Oh, you're sad.
I'm very sad. Yeah.
You're very sad. What's that called? The Red River Classic, or what's that called?
They called it the Red River Shootout, and they changed it because all of the gun violence. So it's Red River Rivalry now. And I had to wear a I'm Oklahoma's bitch t-shirt one time at TV because I lost to Briscoe. So Briscoe hates OU as much as I do. He's from Oklahoma State. I remember when Murdoch and Akbar used to always call Bill Watts and Jim Ross when Texas won. It's the greatest rivalry ever for us. Of course, you got Michigan State, Ohio State, and Penn State.
I don't think it's as big as Oklahoma Texas rivalry. I
don't think it is either. It's got whole state shuts down for it.
Man,
they got us this year. They have a really good team.
They do, and I think it was the best game I've seen in, 10 years maybe.
Oklahoma did everything they needed to do that game. They really played well. Texas didn't slip on a banana peel. Oklahoma shut them down on the goal line stand. They end up coming back at the end. Oklahoma really played well to beat them and almost blew it last week against UCF. But it's going to be interesting. I think Texas and OU will end up playing again, probably for the conference championship.
Maybe good. And I'm kind of on Oklahoma side because of their coach, Venables. He coached at Clemson. He coached at Clemson, so I kind of like him. But he didn't have such a good year last year. But
terrible! He had no defense
this year.
Yeah, I was at a charity golf tour one time in Tyler, Texas. I'm down in Athens, Texas, and down Tyler's about 35 miles away. And they asked me to come over for a charity golf tournament. They said, "Hey, we got a big treat for you. We're going to have you play with Barry Switzer." And I said, "Was Saddam Hussein busy?" I said, "I'm from Texas." I said, "I grew up hating this man, and he was the nicest man. I can see why he was such a great recruiter and everything. I had a wonderful time with him, but I wanted to hate him so badly that it kind of disarmed me that I liked him so much."
John, how did we meet? You remember?
I do remember. Absolutely. I had been in Europe for 2 years working for Otto and flew back over, and Bruce and I think Bruce had called me and wanted me to come out of the shows that they had in Philadelphia. It was a pay-per-view, and then we were up in Bethlehem, I believe it was, during a snowstorm. And the first day I get there, Tony Gurria throws me out of the locker room. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm here for a tryout or something."
He threw you out?
And he goes, "Well, you got to get out of here." And I said, "What do you mean I got to get out of here?" I said, I flew all the way from Europe. And I said, he goes, "Well, you're not on the card. You have to leave." So he threw me out. So I went to the hotel and tried to change my flight, and I couldn't change it. And so I thought, well, I'll go the next day. But it was snowing like crazy. And we get down to Bethlehem, and you and I were sitting around talking in the locker room, and I had so much fun talking with you. And I was going to go out against Savio Vega. And you said, "Well, I'll go out with you," or something to that effect.
Yeah, something like
and
that.
I said, "Well, that's great," because I'd seen what you'd done with the Harris boys. And I thought, well, this is great. I've got this established guy that's going out with me. And even though we only had about 200 people in the crowd, all on one side of the ring that night.
But I remember sitting in there with you because the Harris boys had left me stranded. They just left. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there with nobody to manage. And then you came in and we got to talking. And I said, "What do you think about me going to the ring with you tonight?" You said, "Hey, fine with me." And then I forgot, I think Bruce walked in or somebody walked in. I said, "What do you think about me going with the ring with John?" "Do it. And I said, "Damn, this is easy." So I went out there and you had the match with Savio, and it was a good match. And I remember you come out and you say, how did I do? And I remember telling you, if that don't get you a job, nothing will. And then Bruce Pritchard walked in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes later. And he says, "You're hired." Did he bring your papers to sign right then?
No, didn't bring me anything. Okay. He came in and told me. Then Gerald Briscoe and JJ pulled me aside and said, "Hey, we want to sign you. We understand you're going to WCW." And I said, "Yeah, my plan was to come here first. And if you guys wanted me, I was going to stay here. But if not, I'm going down to WCW." Well, Briscoe pulled me into the payphone. He goes, "Well, hey, I want you to call him right now. I'm going to watch you." And so I said, "Look, I told you I'd sign," and that they didn't offer me any money. So I went up to the Titan Towers. Remember that old contract? It was like for 10 days for $150 a day. There was no guarantee. And WCW had given me not guaranteed money. They said they were going to give me guaranteed money. It wasn't they never officially offered me a contract. They said, "Here's what we'll probably offer you." So it wasn't an official offer. And so I go up there to meet with Vince and Lisa Wolf and JJ Dillon. And Vince walks in and throws this big contract down. First time I'd met him, I didn't meet him that night. And he says, "That contract's not worth the ink it's written on, but I guarantee the handshake behind it." And I said, "Good enough for me." So I shook his hand and signed the contract without even reading it and gave it back to him.
Yeah. Vince liked you.
Yeah. We always had a good relationship. Still do. I saw him not too long ago. And
how's he doing?
It looked like he's doing great. I was so happy.
How's that mustache?
For a guy who never liked facial hair, I can't believe he's got a mustache.
Really?
He would like most guys grow facial hair. Some guys would, but he didn't like them. His announcers didn't want him to have, and I can't believe he's got a mustache.
Well, here's another question I want to ask. We went to Germany. Me and you and all the rest of the crew. And flying over, I went to sleep. Something happened we was in first class. I woke up and that first class section was trashed. Trashed. I looked up and there was actually a knife
stuck in the wall.
Stuck in the wall. Somebody had thrown a knife and it had stuck in the wall.
Yep.
And they were very, very upset with us.
They were furious.
Didn't we land in Munich?
I think that's right. Yeah. And
guess what, James? The whole crew got kicked off the flight.
It was unreal.
You're going to have to find another way. We were going to another town. And they had to get us new tickets and everything. Wasn't that when Razor Ramon had some of his hair cut off? Was that it?
I don't remember if they did or not. I was there when Razor. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But it was one of the craziest flights. People talk about that plane ride from hell, which I was on too. There was a lot worse than the plane ride from hell. Plane ride from hell just got reported. That was insane. That whole business class section was trashed. Absolutely trashed. A knife was stuck into the wall. It was crazy.
There was all kind of food on the wall, everything.
Yeah.
And I says, what the hell happened? Were you awake when it went on, John, or no?
Some of it, yeah. A food fight started, some wrestling started, and this was a commercial flight too. This was not a charter flight. Yeah, a food fight started. So that's where all the food got done. And I'm brand new to the company. I don't want to be involved in any of it. And but I saw the majority of it. I pretended to be asleep, but I was not.
Well, on that, and I'm going to ask you this because I've thought about this a lot over the years. You remember our little friend Sonny?
Of course.
She was over there.
Yeah.
And I forgot we had maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 dates. I mean, shows. And then all of a sudden, Sonny wasn't there one day. And remember how the rumors run. I said, where's Sonny? Where's Sonny? Where's Sonny? You want to tell them what happened, John?
Oh yeah. Because I had to sit toward the front of the bus up with you and Gerald Briscoe, and so I'm sitting there one day with Gerald Briscoe, and this is the precursor to it. And Sonny gets on the bus. Now Scott and Kevin both have signed with WCW. They're filling their dates in that they didn't have to fill in. They're doing us a favor. So if they're late for the bus, who cares? You know, we got nothing else to do. We got no internet. We got no cell phones. We got nothing to do. All we're doing is either wait at the place we're going, or we're going to wait on the bus there. So they were late one morning. No one cared. But Sonny walked on and told George Steele in front of everybody. She said, hey, Scott and Kevin and a bunch of those guys, she listed all the names. She said they were out last night. And they were late for the bus yesterday, or 2 nights ago. They're late for the bus yesterday. I missed my tanning. I missed my gym session.
That's right.
And she's sitting there just telling on them. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at Briscoe, and I said, this isn't going to end well. I promise you. I don't know what's going to happen, but this does not end well. Because
she stews them off.
Stews every one of them.
In front of George.
Right to George in the front of the bus, in front of everybody. She was really mad about the fact that she didn't get to do what she wanted to do in her normal day because these guys were late to bus. Surprise, surprise. A bunch of young guys without much responsibility and a little bit too much money and TV time are not responsible to get on a bus on time. We all did it. You know, everybody did it. It wasn't a big deal. No one got mad about it, but Sonny decided to talk to George about it. And then a few days later, that's when that's when a mysterious element showed up in her take-home food.
Oh my God!
Yeah, you know, we used to get the food, and we'd put on the top what we wanted, like steak, potatoes, corn, whatever. You put it out there, and then they would fill it in and put that on top of you so that they knew which one was which, and your name was on it. So everybody. So you had a list of, you know, you'd have Scott, Kevin, you'd Taker, you'd have whoever, Briscoe, Dutch, you'd have all these guys down, and then all their food. So the food was very, very accessible.
Somebody got a hold of Sonny's little food box, and she didn't find out about it till she got back to the hotel that night.
Apparently it was underneath their pasta.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I had zero to do with it. I didn't. I was too young to do anything in the business. So, but I'd heard about it.
Do you know who did that?
100%.
I do too.
I think his name's out there, but I'm not going to say it in case it's not.
Well, he actually told
Bobby Heenan once stewed Steve Kern for taking a crap in Lawler's crown when years later in a book. And Steve told me this, and Lawler always thought it was Curt Hennig. Everybody thought it was Curt Hennig until Heenan had stooged in the book, but Heenan thought that everybody knew about it. So when he wrote in his book, he didn't know it was news. So I don't want to give any news out there in case it's not well known.
Well, the finish
I think it is well known, though.
The finish of this story, Sonny was all of a sudden taken off that tour immediately and sent back to the States. And I remember the whispering on the bus the day she wasn't there. Everybody was saying, "We're Sonny, we're Sonny, we're Sonny." And somebody said, you know, they took her off because she raised so much hell. And from then on out, Sonny, I don't know.
She had ridiculous talent. She was incredibly talented. She was a beautiful young lady.
She's too stupid to realize it.
She could talk.
Who was advising her? Nobody.
I don't know if Candido was or who was. I don't know. I mean, she was just constantly in battles with different guys when I was there. I didn't have much dealing with her. She was wonderful to me, but I didn't work with her. I didn't know anything, didn't have any real contact with her.
Well,
she seemed very nice. She seemed very nice to me, but I could, she was like oil and water with a bunch of guys.
Oh boy, a bunch of guys. But anyway,
but she was probably the first diva, right?
Probably she was the first diva, I guess.
She was beautiful. She was one of these, we got all these downloads when they first had the internet, and she could talk. I mean, she was really talented.
I got some questions here for you, John. I really want to even know about them myself. Who the stiffest guy you ever wrestled? The stiffest?
Oh, probably Kawada. And Kabashi could be at times. Kawada was pretty snug. Just liked working that way. He was a tough guy and he liked working that way. Vader could work that way, but not always. Vader would always stiff you once or twice. I liked Leon. I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
I liked working with him. He was a great worker, a terrific big man. But man, when he got ready for pay-per-views or big matches, it was like being in a car crash. He brought it. He would really hit you so hard you'd see bright lights.
Oh, let me put another. Who was anybody worked stiff with you in the U.S. American guy?
Killer Tim Brooks. Yeah, Killer Tim Brooks. He would beat you half to death. I remember I worked with Killer Tim Brooks. Guy. Oh my goodness, what a great!
I loved him. him.
I used to ride with Killer. I learned so much from Killer Tim Brooks about being a heel. He was one of the best heels I've ever seen. He and Murdoch were cousins, and he tagged with Brody. He was a great worker, but man, he was stiff. I mean, stiff. It was ridiculous how stiff he was. He would hit you so hard, and he had those little skinny knuckles, and just and he hit him back, and he didn't care. He loved it.
Oh, he didn't give a crap.
He didn't care at all. He loved you to hit him back hard. He lived for that. He lived to be out in the middle of the ring, draw a circle around you, and just punch each other in the face. He thought that was the greatest night ever. I liked Killer. I rode with Killer, and Killer helped me out so many times. He was a
funny guy.
Yeah, real funny guy.
Funny guy. You ever work with Hanson?
Many times. Yeah.
How was he? Because he always looked stiff, but
Stan was a good worker.
I've often said, if you take a fan who doesn't know about pro wrestling, and he watched Hanson, or he watched Brody, or even watched you or Brooks, if you tried to tell him these guys were working, he'd go, I don't know. If you try to tell him, it looked pretty damn legit to me, and that's what they tried to do, and succeeded, I might add.
I saw a match the other day with Hanson and I think Spivey tagging against, I can't remember who it was. It was Doc and Gordy or who it was. And that was one of the most physical matches I've ever seen. And I've been in those matches with Stan. Nothing's called in the back. I've seen them do 6-man matches in Japan, and they're doing splashes off the top rope. Nothing was called. I mean, it was just a masterpiece. And Stan had that cardio where he actually worked very hard on his cardio. He went 100% from the time he left the curtain till the time he came back. He said he always got that from Tiger Jeet Singh, that Jeet Singh would come out and be all constant motion, and Stan wanted to be like that. And if you watched his matches, he was constant motion. There's nothing like being out in Budokan Hall and seeing Stan Hansen coming out romping and stomping with that bull rope of flying and Japanese fans running everywhere. It was insane watching that. And he was great to work with. He hit Barry Windham with the clothesline one time. Barry comes back, and his whole face is all messed up. His eyes bulged out. It's bloody. And Stan goes, Stan, what the hell? And Stan goes, thanks, Barry. And Stan goes, no, Stan, what the hell? Stan goes, what? Barry goes, Stan, put on your glasses. So he put on his glasses. He looked up at Barry. He goes, what happened to you? Stan was the best. I always thought he could see fine. I think that was all the work.
Did you ever work with Brody?
No, never got the privilege.
Mm-hmm. Well,
him and Stan were such a great tag team. They're both cut out of the same mold. It's just incredible. We wish Bruiser had been around a lot longer.
I wish I had seen a match in Japan with Brody and Hansen in it. Because those people, I mean, you can't reproduce that.
No.
I mean, those people were running out of fear. They literally feared these guys.
Yeah.
And they were big. They were rough. They looked wild. It was crazy. So, but I wish I'd have been over there. I was on one tour with Brody, but not Hansen. I would have loved to seen them together one time.
Yeah, me too. Stan told me one time, and I asked him about it later, and he didn't remember telling me this. So I don't want to, but I do remember him saying it. He said one time they had Baba and they shot him off for a double tackle, and they both hit Baba and knocked him through the ropes. And Stan said at that point, he goes, I just thought we own Japan.
Yeah.
And they did. Those boys own Japan.
A lot of people don't know those little guys who run around the ring, or we think of them as seconds, but they're wrestlers too, right?
Tough guys. That's right. Tough guys who've been through the dojo and really they've been through hell. I mean, some inhumane treatment to those guys. There are some tough guys paying their dues. When I was there working, Animal Hamaguchi had a gym in Ueno Station we used to go to, and Funaki was one of those young guys. So I remember meeting Funaki when I was there, when he was one of Animal Hamaguchi's young trainees.
I was looking at a guy one day and his finger was missing. And I said, okay, he had an accident. Then I'm looking around. There was another guy with 2 fingers missing. I went, that's odd. That's kind of a strange coincidence. Then I looked at one and he had 3 fingers from here down, from that knuckle down, missing. I went, what the hell? And I finally asked somebody, and they said, well, if they screw up one time, they just cut their little finger off here. If they screw up again, they cut their other knuckle off. And then I'm thinking, man, the guy I saw must have been a real fuck up, because his whole hand was gone. It was crazy. Japan was just.
Oh, yeah.
And I went over there for a group. I told this story the other day. I went over there for a group, and it was that first semi-shoot group.
Yeah.
Who was the guy?
It was a UWF?
Something. And I went over there, and I come back, and I may have told you this story, James, and I sit down, and I went, damn, these guys can't work. And one guy looked at me like, work? What? They didn't tell you? I said, tell me what? They said, this is like a semi-shoot group. I went, well, no shit. Then I got to thinking, hey, I may have won some of those fights had I known I was in one. I didn't even know. But they would just beat the living shit out of you. And then you'd have to beat the living shit out of them, except you wouldn't hit them in the face or anything. And then, damn. And then you come back to the dressing room, and it was like night and day. It's oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I mean, shit. It was fucking crazy. So how many times you go over there, John?
Oh, I went over there almost every other month when I first started. I've been over there, I don't know how many times. I wish I'd kept count, probably 15, 20 times. I'm guessing. I don't know, because I went over there a lot. I went over there first for Sakurada, Kendo Nagasaki. Then I went for Tenru. Then the last went for Baba, just one tour for Baba, and only a few tours for Tenru. So I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 times. Maybe 15, 20 is too much. I'm not sure.
So you were on the plane ride from hell.
Yeah.
How do you remember it? How do you remember it? Or did you go to sleep and pass out?
No, I didn't pass out. I saw nearly the whole thing. It was. I thought they made it out to be a little worse. It wasn't. I didn't see any of the stuff. The allegations with Ric Flair and the flight attendant. I didn't see any of that. So I have no firsthand knowledge of any of it. But the other stuff I saw, and it was. Brock and Kurt were wrestling in the aisle of the plane. They weren't fighting. It was what happened was Kurt put some shaving cream on Brock's head. You know how guys used to do. So when you wake up, first thing you do is kind of brush your hair, and Kurt had shaving cream in his hair. So Brock didn't sell it. So Brock goes to the restroom, gets the shaving cream out of his head, and comes back and sits down. Well, him and Kurt start, Kurt kept poking the bear. Finally, Brock gets up and stretches him. And so finally Kurt goes, all right. I'm the second toughest guy in the WWE. And so Brock starts to let go of him, and Kurt had boots on, and Brock was barefoot, and Kurt stomped Brock's foot with his heel. And when he did, Brock goes into Suplex City in the plane. Woo! Throws him over. But they were never. I never thought at one time that they were going to go through the fire door, the emergency door, or anything like that. I don't remember. I was there. I was standing right by watching it. I don't remember anybody thinking that they were going through the door. Now, somebody may have thought that. I don't know what what's in people's minds, but
don't you wish we had cameras on the phones then?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
We got that. That would have been great. Okay.
Wait a minute. Let me tell you one story that wasn't on the Plane Ride from Hell documentary, which I thought was just as funny as anything. So I had juiced when I was over in England, and I believe it was Kurt Hennig went by, and I was buckling my seatbelt, and he goes, "Hey, you got a pretty good gig, Mark," and he punches me right in the head, as the guys used to do, So I'm in a suit. So, I had a couple drinks, blood's thin. I bleed all over my suit and everything. I'm covered in blood. I look like I've been in freaking like a Halloween massacre or something. So anyway, this adds to the effect of later, Michael Hayes got his ponytail cut. So Michael wakes up, and we're going through customs in Hartford for some reason. I think because we're flying private. We weren't going in New York. We're going through Hartford. And so Michael comes into his baggage claim, and he wants to fight any and everybody because he's got his ponytail cut. He's cut the promo of a lifetime, and he wants to fight. Well, Jerry Briscoe had been gimmicked by somebody and was just kind of coming to. And he's got his bags down like that, and he looks up and he goes, "You want to fight, Michael?" And he throws his bags over his heads, and he goes after Michael. So now Briscoe's going after Michael Hayes. It's 4:00 in the morning. I'm sitting there watching the whole thing covered in blood. Taker's one that separates him and gets Michael out the door, and kind of calms it down.
And it was wild. Nobody goes to jail.
No.
Wow.
Dutch, I've been on worse. I mean, not to justify it or anything else, and again, I don't know any of the allegations of, some of the worst stuff. I was not in that part of the plane, have no firsthand knowledge of any of that.
I see nothing. I see nothing.
I know nothing. Yeah. Like Davey Boy. I wasn't even there. It was Owen. Davey used to register under a fake name because he was scared of Owen.
Really?
So he would put his name under a fake name in the hotel because he didn't want Owen to find him because Owen tortured him.
I'm going to ask you this, and I think I want to ask you the continuation. See, I take credit for Wrestler's Court to bringing it to WWE.
I've always heard that it was your idea. I've always heard that.
Because I used to do it in Memphis because I've
always heard that you were the one either invented it or created it or refined it or whatever it was.
Well, I actually kind of had you in mind when I was inventing it. I said, if I just had John, we could finish this off. But you took Wrestler's Court to a whole new level in WWE. Who did you try? Give me some notable trials.
Oh, my goodness. The best trial we ever had was in Nashville. We put Teddy Long on the stand for selling free Viagra to the boys. It was, we roll with Teddy. He's the cheapest man ever walked on God's green earth. And so Teddy, when they first got Viagra coming out, he used to get samples from some of the doctors. And some of the guys would go, "Hey, Teddy, can I get some of those samples?" And so Teddy started selling them. To the boys. I don't think it was like necessarily a money-making venture, but he would give me $5 for these or whatever else. He wasn't getting pills and saying, "I'm going to sell them." He wasn't like a drug dealer, but he was selling free Viagra. So Ron and I go, "Teddy, those Viagra are free." Because I think he tried to sell me and Ron some.
Yeah.
They're free, Teddy. We're going to throw you out of the car if you don't give us. So we took him to court, and he got Mae Young as his counselor. The entire building shut down. The place was packed. Wrestlers Court you'd spend 2 or 3 weeks getting ready for Wrestlers Court.
Yeah.
Guys would prepare their arguments. Guys would prepare props. Guys would bribe the judges. It was always rigged. We always said the judge was the hanging judge because he was always hungover. It was Taker. So
yeah.
So we get Teddy there, and Mae Young gets up there. He goes,
"Now you were the prosecutor."
I was nearly always I was the prosecutor. Either Kane or Godfather was the bailiff, and Taker was the judge. And I think Triple H Hunter filled in maybe that night. He filled in a couple times for Taker if Taker wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so Mae Young gets up. She goes, "I don't know why you boys need all this Niagara. Y'all got big peckers." that was her argument.
Who else was?
Needless to say, Teddy lost. We never had. I'm undefeated. I was like Jerry Spence. I was undefeated, but it was all rigged anyway. So Teddy got fined a bucket of chicken for me and Ron, and he had to buy us a case of beer for me and Ron, and then he had to buy the judge a bottle of whiskey and give. I won't say who because he's passed away. Some free Viagra.
Well, I've never heard this story. That is a great story. I love
people that were there.
Mae Young was the defense attorney
for Teddy Long.
Oh God, that would have been hilarious.
She was awesome. Moolah was there advising her. It was one of the funniest things I've ever.
And none of this got taped.
None of it. Zero got taped.
Damn, that would have been a classic.
Guys look forward. You remember the guys look forward to Wrestling Court for weeks. We had so much fun with it. It was a fun, we didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. We had to entertain ourselves. And so it was a lot of fun. The pomp and circumstance of Wrestlers Court and the ridiculous arguments that we made.
Somebody come out and said, Wrestlers Court was the stupidest thing I ever heard. I think CM Punk said that. I replied back, it was supposed to be stupid, idiot. Nobody. It was supposed to entertain guys, and it did. It was very entertaining.
It did. It was entertaining. It was for entertainment purposes only. There was nothing serious about it. It was just fun.
I heard a story about you, John, and I want to know if there's any truth to it, that you knocked out Road Dogg twice in the same match.
He told that story. He told me that story afterwards.
Is that true?
He says it is. I was in a match with him, and I do remember he did come back and he was woozy. What happened was he was climbing over a rail, and I go to hit him with a chair. We hit each other hard with chairs back then, and didn't put up our hands. And he was sitting on the rail, climbing over the barricade, and I hit him with the chair as he did. There was nowhere for him to go, and it just crunched his body like an accordion.
Oh.
One time, Dutch, it's funny. We were in some thing with him and Billy, and Road Dogg comes in and kicks me in the back. This is how we played. So I understand it's both ways. Road Dogg kicks me in the back as hard as he can kick me. I mean, in a match, as hard as he can kick me. And I turn around. I said, "You son of a!" So before I could say anything, he punches me in the forehead, almost as hard as he can hit. Almost knocked both and staggers me back. And he takes off running, and he leaves the match and doesn't come back. He leaves Billy out there. So of course Billy always griped about guys being. Billy's as tough as anybody. Plus he's aged backwards right now. He looks fantastic.
Yeah, he does.
Billy gets to the back and tells Road Dogg. Road Dogg's laughing about it. He goes, this is a double shot. We got him again tonight. Road Dogg goes, oh no.
Oh my God. I could just see Road Dogg running from. Where did that happen?
He left the match and didn't come back. He punched me almost as hard as he could right in the forehead and left the match and didn't come back. He thought it was so funny. He thought he wouldn't have to see me for a day or two. And then Billy told him, it's a double shot. But Road Dogg didn't care. He likes griping. He was just as stiff as anyone else. He's a tough guy, by the way. Former Marine.
Oh, he's tough. He really is. I talked to him not too long ago.
He is a tough guy. He always talks about how he isn't. So does Billy. Those were two really tough guys and really talented guys.
His father passed away, Bob. You ever meet Bob?
I did.
Good guy.
I never worked with him. I met him later when he came into catering or something, and when we're down in Florida. And I just remember walking in. I mean, it's kind of like when Bronco Lubitsch will walk in. You know this is somebody really important. It's really cool to see him, Bullet Bob, and because he just had that presence about him. It was really cool I got in line like all the other talent and to meet him. Because I was wanted to pay my respects, and I was glad I did.
Easiest guy to have a match with ever, because he did all the work. He'd go over there and do his knees together, and he was at Bullet, and he was over like a son of a bitch. You didn't have to do nothing to him. Then and every match is the same. Just get him down, get a little heat on him, make a comeback. It's it. And you go home, and the people they were with him the whole time. I got another question here. Who's this? Who took the best clothesline other than me?
Billy Gunn. I hit you with that clothesline a lot by mistake. By mistake, somehow the other opponent would always duck and I'd hit you. Billy Gunn, no doubt about it. Billy Gunn used to take it like I killed him, and he would flip with it. And Billy Gunn I saw Billy one time in a 6-man tag match make the greatest comeback I've ever seen to this day in my life, and I've watched tens of thousands of matches. Billy was so freaking still is so freaking talented. Yeah. Billy took that clothesline like it killed him. So did X-Pac. A lot of guys did.
He was a
the only guys who couldn't take it well were guys that couldn't bump quick. And because of that, it was such a freaking massive collision. If guys didn't bump quick, I mean, it almost killed me and you.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up to you. I'm sure you remember it. Jake the Snake. You remember Jake?
Yeah, very well.
Okay.
Of course, we worked with him when we were in Europe.
Yeah, he came
one of the greatest
me,
legends ever.
Yeah, he came to me one night and he says, "Brother, that voice he's got, you need to talk to your boy." I said, "Why?" He's killing me with that clothesline. And I went, "Well, Jake, really, I think you might be better served if you go to John and tell him that he might need to or change it up somehow. Because if I went to you, it's me telling you, he needs to go." But I remember standing outside that ring watching you, John. Brother, when you would hit Jake, it was splat. Oh, my God. I would go, oh, God. Because like you said, if you bumped quick.
Yeah, you didn't touch you. I hate to give that out. Booker T stooged me a while back and said that I never touched him with the clothesline because he bumped quick. And so it kind of killed my whole gimmick of the clothesline from hell because everybody thought it was so bad. And
I had heard so much about it and saw so much from it. The last night we were together, you was going to clothesline me.
Yeah.
I'm going the whole match. I'm going, oh God, oh God, he's gonna kill me. Guess what? You never touch me because I was gone.
That's right.
As soon as it's coming, bam, I'm down. And it looked like it killed me, and I got out of there.
Yeah, so many guys I would never touch. It just looked like because I'd launched myself into them. I developed that in Japan with Sakurada over the course of a tour about how to throw the clothesline. I finally figured out where, if the guy bumps quick, it doesn't even touch him. Mm-hmm. The problem was with Jake was older, and Jake was at a point in his career because of so many injuries, he couldn't bump quick.
Yep.
And so I was trying everywhere in the world not to hurt Jake, but it was just a freaking collision. I come running off the ropes, full speed, go flying into him, and then it was a splat. You're right. It was a collision every night. I felt terrible because that's Jake the Snake Roberts, There's not really a way to work it if the guy doesn't bump quick. And because of that, I felt bad for it because I had so much respect for Jake.
You felt bad for him? Splat.
He was, he's a legend.
He was
a legend. Jake could work. Jake, I got him at a point in his career when he was, I don't want to talk about past his prime, physically, because he couldn't do much. He was hurt, but man, he could get over doing very little. He was
very little.
We worked with him.
Jake the Snake. He had psychology down to a T. He didn't have to do nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
Jake the Snake. You could watch him and you could almost see him thinking. And then now you get into the part like, what is going through that head of his? Because that's the image he gave off, and that's the image he got over. So
yeah, and he was so different. He did soft promos, so you'd have to listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was just Jake's a smart guy. He really knew the business.
John, is your father? Now you told me this one time. Is your father a pastor or a minister or no?
Yes, yeah,
he was.
Yes, yeah.
So
yeah. He passed away a couple years ago, and he was an ordained minister when he was 16 years old, but he didn't have any money. And so he didn't have money to go to seminary school and all that stuff. So he got into community banking and went to school late, went to school when he was 25 because he didn't have the money to go to college, had to save up some money. But he worked in banking most of his life. But then when he retired from banking, he preached, was a minister at a little small church near here in Texas for probably 20 years because that's all he really wanted to do. He always preached for free on the weekends. He was wonderful speaker and a really good man. But yeah, he was a very religious guy and a very good guy.
Well, I'm thinking, I think John told me one day somewhere out in wherever we were that his father had been a pastor. And then I get to thinking, no, maybe he didn't tell me that.
No, he was.
But you did tell me that. So
yeah, he was a pastor and was an ordained minister. But the only reason he didn't go into the clergy when he was younger was he didn't have the money. So he got into banking and just kind of stayed in banking his whole life. You know, when you grow up poor, you know, you got a living, you tend to hang on to money a little more. And so he worked in banking until he retired and then went into full-time being a pastor.
Did you ever think about being a pastor too?
Yeah, because I liked my father.
Yeah.
But then then I realized I don't need to be a pastor.
No, you don't.
But when I was young, yeah. Of course. When you're young, you want to be like your dad, you know. So yeah. But as I got older, I thought, I like too many things in life that
well,
I'm not going to be one of those guys. I'm not going to be a hypocrite.
Okay, I was going to ask you about one more thing here. Let me look at it. I got all my questions here, and damn it. Let's see here. You had Wrestler's Coat. We got that. Your Eddie Guerrero run.
Yeah.
That was a good one, right?
Oh, my goodness. Saved my career. I don't know about saved my career, made my career at the end. You know, I thought I was retiring, and Ron had retired. Ron's, a little bit older than me, 5 or 6 years older than me, and he had injuries. Ron wrestled longer than he should have because of me. Ron's a wonderful human being, one of the best men I've ever met.
Didn't Ron retire when you were with him?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and we always said we're never going to wrestle against each other at the end. We didn't want to do that at the end. We wrestled each other a ton when we started. We wrestled each other a lot on the road. We wrestled each other some even when we were APA. But then Ron was ready to retire, and he gave me that good heel rub. And I thought I was pretty much done. 9/11 had happened. It changed the world. And I was going to Iraq a bunch. And then I came up with the idea for a tribute to the troops, which I've been given way too much credit for, but it was my idea. WWE did everything. Vince and Kevin did everything. They've been wonderful to give me all the credit, which I really don't deserve. But I was going to Iraq a lot. And I always thought my role at that point was going to be a liaison between WWE and the troops because we had these wars going on. There was this patriotic fervor. Well, then all of a sudden, a bunch of guys got hurt. I tore a bicep. I had a hernia surgery. I thought I was pretty much retired. And Vince called me and said, hey, we've got Big Show out. We didn't say who it was. He said I had an opportunity. He didn't explain why I got the opportunity because the whole roster was hurt. Big Show was out. Kurt was hurt. Brock had left the company. And I needed somebody for Eddie Guerrero in 6 weeks at the Staples Center. And of course I'm going to take it. I love Eddie. Eddie and I were good friends. And so I come out there and I cut the JBL promo and for the first time, and it didn't work. Come out the second week, same thing, crickets. I mean, I'm cutting the best promo I know how to cut. And they wrote it really well for me. Some was my, collaboration, but it didn't work. So Eddie and his brother Chavo come to me and said, hey, we got Mother's Day coming up in El Paso, where his father, Gory Guerrero, was a legendary promoter.
Yeah.
And he said, we got Mother's Day weekend. We want you to come out after the match, when Eddie goes to give flowers to his mother, jump Eddie, and the mother is going to have a heart attack and be carted off in an ambulance. And I said, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's similar to the story that Chavo did with Piper years ago in the Staples Center. A little bit different version, but same with the Guerrero family. I think so. That's probably where Chavo got it from, is what I think. But anyway, they came up with this whole idea. And so we go into El Paso, wrestle a match with Eddie, and the place is sold out. They're chanting Gory the whole match for Gory Guerrero. The mother comes out, the place goes ballistic, and I'm in the back. I come back out, hit Eddie over the head with a chair, and I caught him with the chair a little bit. And either he had juiced or it caught him hard way. I'm not sure what happened, but he got some blood coming down him. And I turn to the mother and go to put my hand on her. But what I'm doing is she grabs the hand, so it looks like I'm pushing her down, but she that way she can take a bump without getting hurt. Is what it is. You know, she's 74 years old. I think that's what she was at the time. She goes down, and you could hear a pin drop, and I'm 2 feet from her, and I'm thinking this woman's had a heart attack. That's how good she was. I mean, there's not a Guerrero that can't work. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I'm sitting there looking at her.
I never heard this story. Have you ever heard this story, James?
I researched it and found this story, hopefully for John to bring up for you to mention as well. So I don't know the story other than a heart attack may or may not have happened.
Well, I'm interested. I'm invested in the story now.
Oh, so this place is sold out. We have state troopers around the ring. State troopers. We know this place is going to potentially riot. Bruce Pritchard's there. We're filming it from like a security camera angle, similar to the Tupelo barroom brawl that happened, where you film it kind of from security cameras. So it looks like it's legit. And so that's how we're filming it, even though we got WWE guys filming it. And she goes down, and I'm right there. And I'm telling you, I've never in my life felt anything like this. The entire arena, you could hear a pin drop. The place got stone silent, nothing. And all I can hear is Eddie, who's laying on the ground selling. He goes, "S.A., you better get the fuck out of here."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I got to get this all on film. I mean, if the place riots, I'm the hottest heel in the world if I just live through this. And so I want to make sure and get, you know, me being a heel, not me being scared to death I'm about to get killed. So I'm cutting a promo on everybody. If she dies, not a big die, blah, 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 blah. They're going to get me on the ring. The security is going, "John, you got to get out of here. You've got to get out of here." So they get me to the back. The car, they have my stuff's in the trunk. I'm in wrestling trunks and boots. And they drive me all the way to the El Paso city limit. The police pull me over because they're giving me an escort out of town. They said, "Listen, the place is pretty upset. We can't guarantee your safety. Drive all the way to Odessa to fly out. Do not come back to El Paso. We think you'll be killed." And so they told me to drive literally all the way to Odessa to fly out. The funny part was I get stopped by a border security checkpoint about 2 miles down the road, and I'm wearing wrestling trunks. I got blood all over me, and I've got no shirt on. And the guy's a Latino cop, and I thought, I can't tell him that I just gave Eddie Guerrero's mom a heart attack. He'll probably shoot me. So I pull up, and the guy just looks at me and goes, "Is there any explanation?" And I'm going, "Not sure you'll buy it." And the guy just go. He goes, "Put your shirt on, go." And of course, all my stuff was in the back. But when that video aired, the next time we were in San Bernardino was the first show. As soon as I got in the ring, a guy jumps in the ring after me. And Brian Hebner plays Pat McAfee and punts the guy's head off. Literally. Eddie tried to go after him because Eddie said he's messed up our match. I'm, "Eddie, I'm the heel. I'm the one that should beat up the fan, not you." Kind of kills the gimmick if you beat up the fan. And I knew we had him at that point. And we weren't selling tickets for that show. We weren't selling nothing. And then the show right after that sold out. They said it set an attendance record there at the Staples Center that I guess Roy Jones Jr. broke years later. But it was all for Eddie. So you think about what Eddie did for me. Eddie not only gave me the angle that created JBL, he gave me the angle that took the title off of him. Because they took the title off of him a month later. And took the title off of him a month later and put it on me. I mean, that's what Eddie did for me. So when I say I owe 100% of my JBL to Eddie Guerrero, I owe 100%. He made the character. And Eddie loved JBL, the character. You know, Eddie was a groomsman in my wedding. I did part of his eulogy. We were good friends. But Eddie used to call me at all times of night and say, "Hey, I got something for you, Eddie. I got somewhere you essay." He goes, "Tell them my ancestors come over here in a boat, not an inner tube." I said, "Hey, you're going to get me killed." He goes, No, it's good essay. It's good essay. Good. We used to laugh and have so much fun with all the stuff that we did. But Eddie and Chavo, that is the whole thing. They're the one that saved JBL. They're the ones that sold out the Staples Center, and they're the ones that set JBL off on this run.
How long did this run go?
I don't know. I think it was, somebody told me 280 days or something. The title, at the time, it was the longest reigning WWE reign in SmackDown history. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit segmented and compartmentalized.
But I love the angle, because you were hitting on real life stuff, and they hated you because you're easy to hate, John.
Thank you.
I saw a videotape of you. You were catching the immigrants coming across the border and kicking them and cussing.
Oh my God, that was filmed right here near my house.
Yeah.
So Bruce Pritchard comes down. We've got all these extras and stuff. We're going to film this scene, and we go out with spotlights to the wrong ranch. A guy comes out with a gun. We almost got shot.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, "What are you guys doing? What are you?" And he's literally, "Guys, I think he's going to shoot us." And I said, "My father lives here." And he goes, "Who's your father?" And I said, Lavelle Layfield. He goes, "Oh, what a good man." And the guy relaxed at that point. I told him, and he goes, "Oh, I know who you are." And he said, "You're at the wrong ranch." So we went to a different ranch to film it. But that was awesome.
Oh man, I was watching it. I went, damn. That was way before I started the stuff with it. I said, but it's a heat magnet. That's what it is. Because
absolutely.
They all hate you because you're the epitome of the big bad American that don't give a crap and thinks everything revolves around him, which basically you actually believe that. So,
hey, Dutch, I grew up in Sweetwater, Texas, and back then oil prices were big. So in the 70s, it was a very rich place. Then the oil prices went south and it got very, very poor. Then now shale oil and hydraulic fracturing drilling and stuff has brought it back. You know, now they've got more reserves in Saudi Arabia. They realize that are tappable. They didn't think they were tappable back then because they thought they were depleted. But in the 70s, there were 2 Lamborghinis. There was a DeLorean in this little small town of 10,000 people, of very poor people. And I remember those guys so well. They threw money under people's noses. They just flaunted how much wealth they had off this oil. And I hated those guys. And so when JBL came along, I thought, what character do I hate the most? And that was the character I hated the most, was those guys. So that's what I patterned JBL over. And that's what Eddie Guerrero understood, because he grew up in the same top region, same area of Texas as I did. He knew this character well. There's these old rich guys that just thought the world.
And you knew it too.
Right. And that's where I drew all the inspiration from those guys I saw that I hated so much.
And if somebody doesn't understand wrestling, if they would watch that, they would understand it. Because you took it wasn't an angle between you and Eddie. It was an angle between you and all the Mexican people.
Right.
And they hated you for that. But you were easy to hate, really. Let me ask you this. Your run with Ron Simmons, APA, how did that come about?
Ron and I were just friends. Ron and I played football. You know, obviously I looked up to Ron because of who he is. And Ron and I rode together. Ron and I wrestled each other a ton. Wrestled him and Scorpio, and me and Wyndham did. And I wrestled Ron in singles. And I don't believe it or not, they didn't have anything for Ron at that point, which is kind of shocking. You know, the first recognized Black World Heavyweight Champion. And they didn't have anything for me either, which is not shocking. So they just kind of stuck us together. I think they just didn't have anything to do with that. Hey, here's these 2 big guys that are both football players, and you know, just kind of hang out together anyway. Let's put them out there. And so they put us out there, and it just started clicking. You know, once the APA was formed,
the setup was ridiculous, but it was hilarious. No walls or see-through walls, but they have to come through the door. Oh, that's great.
That was all Ron.
Was that him?
They were going to build the walls, and Ron goes, "No, leave it like that." They go, Ron, there's no walls. He goes, yeah, perfect. That was
so
Ron.
So the deal is you guys will sit in there, smoke cigars or whatever, and play cards till somebody would come to you and want you to do something.
Yeah, we never wrestled. I mean, when they brought in like Mr. T or Rebecca Romaine to promote a movie or Chris Klein or LL Cool J or whatever, we're the ones that worked with them. You know, we did the bar fight scenes and all that stuff. It was the greatest gig ever. It was so much fun. And we got over more doing that than we ever did wrestling a match. We were wrestling match after match. We weren't getting over. And then all of a sudden they put us backstage and let us try to be funny. Ron certainly was, and drink beer, and it worked.
Ron's voice got him over.
Oh,
I mean, damn. I mean, I can't do his voice, but I mean, it's been copied, and he's such a good guy.
Yeah.
But I remember you. This was after I'd left. I remember you for the APA because it was so ridiculously stupid. It was right.
Yes.
That was right down my lane, right down your lane, because it's easy to do.
Right.
I mean, you're not thinking like a lot of guys, well, would that make sense if I didn't? No, you don't worry. You just throw that out the window. Let's just make it entertaining and come to the door, and you can see around the door, but they'd have to come through the door the right way. It was,
and you know, the guy, it was also good because guys put us over like $1 million. I mean, The Rock was already becoming this huge mega star. We made him go through the door. He played along. He did the whole thing. Taker did the whole thing. I mean, they all sold the door and put it over. I mean, they all did us a huge favor. But by the way, they sold the APA. A lot of guys bought into what we were doing in our character and really helped us out.
You got any good Undertaker stories?
Oh my goodness. He was the judge for so many years in Wrestlers Court, and he was just unbelievable. He wouldn't one, I can't tell because of God. Yeah.
We need to do this, James, where we can really tell these stories, but we can't tell the stories.
That's right.
You just can't tell it because why? Well, I just can't,
He's Cool Hand Luke. I mean, he really is Cool Hand Luke. I've been out with him so many times, and he's just as cool as, it's just unbelievable. I mean, some guys are just, I wish I was born with that, just to be the coolest guy in the room, in every room he's in. He has a way for just thinking things through, coming up with the right idea, the right decision, the right whatever. He's a locker room leader for all kinds of reasons, but he legitimately is Cool Hand Luke.
He told me one time he was a bouncer at this bar in Houston or somewhere, and it come time for the bar to close, and he went and told everybody, okay, we're closing, guys. We got to get out of here. And the guy turned to him and says, I'll go, but you ain't making me go. I'm thinking, my God. So he come back about 5 minutes later. Oh, we got to get out of here. You got to go. The guy said it again. I'll go, but you ain't making me go. Said it twice. So and everything's done in threes. I said, what happened the third time? I'm getting ahead of the story myself. He said, well, he said the same thing. He said, I'm going, but you ain't making me go. And he said, I snatched that son of a bitch. I run his head right into the wall, put the boots to him and threw him outside. And I says, well, I didn't make you go, did I? And walked off. And the guy just got up, and he was smart. He didn't try to fight Taker. That was be the wrong thing to do, but he threw his ass out. And Undertaker, how many times you work with him? Quite a few times? A lot?
Oh, my goodness. No telling. Over 100, I would think. Yeah, because when during 04 and 05, we closed every show nearly, especially on TV, because they'd always, want people, in case the main event match was not a match that was a draw, the way it worked in the TV show, you put the main event sometimes on earlier, or the crossover. They always had Taker wrestle, the dark match. And so I'd always be the one that would go out there and take the choke slam, tombstone and all that stuff from him. That's when I tried to get him to break character so many times. And
people like that, you getting your ass beat. They hated you.
Yeah, I'd come out there and I'd cut up. a 7-8 minute promo on him and take a choke slam and a tombstone. That's all. That's all he'd have to do.
And that's all you want.
I would get lines all TV long from everybody in TV, from the top guy down, about trying to break Taker and get him to laugh during the segment.
And you never got him to laugh?
I got him to smirk one time. He had been on a vacation, and his RV had broke down. He said, I looked back there and my dog was panting on the floor. It was so hot inside the RV. And I told him when I was out there, I said, you know what? You're just a mean person. You need to go on a vacation. You need to get an RV and a dog. And you could see him start to laugh. But I popped myself and I started laughing. That's what gave him a break. And next thing you know, I'm getting tombstone and chokeslam. So he said that was the closest he's ever come to getting broke.
I was in a bar with him one night, and we were sitting way in the back, and some people knew who we were, and he went up front for something, and all of a sudden he was gone quite a while. I said, "Damn, what happened?" Then I heard a big ruckus up front. People screaming, carrying on. And I go up there, and there's a guy laid out on the floor, just down. He was out. And I said, what happened? He said, I don't know. I think Taker was he had had a little too much. I said, let's go. I grabbed him and got out, and we met the cop car coming in. We were going out, and they were coming in. So what had happened, he went up there, and the guy had asked Taker, hey, you one of those fake-ass wrestlers? And he tried to shake him off, but he grabbed him again. He tried to leave again. Third time, he laid him out. He straightened that right arm out on him, and the guy was out completely. So we made it out of there without going to jail. We were in Knoxville, and this is how stupid we were. Knoxville, Tennessee football is big. It's a Saturday night. And we couldn't get a room anywhere. I don't know why we didn't think of that before. And I forgot. I think we stayed at a Motel 4, not even a Motel 6. It was horrible, but that's the only place we could get. So who else did you have great matches with in WWE?
As a tag team, we got all of the great tag teams of the late 90s we got to work with. We got to work with the Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Dudleys when they came in. We worked with Dudleys a ton. We loved working with those guys. We loved working with all of them. And Road Dogg and Billy. Kane and X-Pac, to me, were the ones that they were, man, X-Pac that guy was a different level. He was so good. He was so good at what he did. But we had so much great talent back then. It was just unreal getting to work with night after night with different guys. I loved working with Booker T. I loved working with Big Show. Really enjoyed working with Big Show. He was so fun to work with, and he was so strong. He was safe. He could throw me around like a rag doll, which nobody really could do because I was 300 pounds, but Big Show could, and I really enjoyed working with Rey Mysterio. Was a lot of fun to work with. Rey Mysterio the size difference was so vast, and it was so much fun to work with and be the bully to the guy that is, the little bitty luchador, it's just, and he fought back so well. Shawn Michaels, you saw him back in the mid 90s. He was like our Jordan. People always say we need more Shawn Michaels. We only had one. There's only one. There was only one back then. There was so much great talent around.
James, you have any questions for John?
Oh, about a million. You know me, Dutch, for goodness sake.
Okay.
John, do you have time for one question, two questions? I know you've got to go fairly soon.
I do. I just, and I apologize because I got to be at a doctor's appointment here in about 30 minutes. So I got to get out of my monkey suit. But I dressed up for you guys. So. Oh,
no, I feel really bad because I really dressed down for this. I didn't even mean to. I just grabbed the first T-shirt.
It looks like a very nice Iron Maiden shirt.
Yes, thank you very much. One of the early albums, in fact. I'll tell you what, can we finish on one question, then let you go?
Sure.
Oh, which one am I going to ask? Right.
If you have two, I could probably do two if I don't take too long for an answer.
Okay. Every single guy I ever interview who has been in the Brawl for All, I've got to ask this, but I'm going to ask two questions. I know, obviously, people will ask about the Bart Gunn thing. But one of the earlier matches, you face off against Mark Mero. And I interviewed Mark Mero, and I said, man, that stare down between you and Bradshaw at the time, it sure seemed real. And Mark went, Boy, it was real at the time. Great friends now, but it's, Vince Russo has said that you were the inspiration for the entire tournament. Is that true?
No idea. That's and I'm not gonna, if he says that was his inspiration, then I can't I'm not gonna dispute what he says that was his mindset. I have no idea. I can't read his mind, so I certainly don't know. We always thought it was for Doc. At the time, we thought everybody that was in the tournament thought it was for Doc. They were going to put Doc over, because Doc was that good, But the problem was Doc was whatever he aged at the time, 38-year-old Doc, not a 28-year-old Doc who had a bunch of concussions. Of course, nobody knew Bart Gunn hit like a heavyweight, which that's what happens when you do a shoot tournament. You find out stuff that you may or may not want to, because it's a shoot. So I have no idea. I've heard Vince Russo say that. If he did. I want to tell you this. I never had a home, and I didn't have any money, and so I won 3 fights and got $15,000 for that, and got $25,000 for my loser share of Bart Gunn, and it's that $40,000 I took and put down on a house. Paid $84,600 for a house that's just a few hundred feet from here, and I've lived in it for 25 years. So it was one of the best things ever happened to me was the Brawl for All, at least for the money aspect, because I got my first home out of it.
I was going to ask, actually, so what did you, so you were promised like a tier ship of like, if you advanced in the tournament, you won more money every time.
Now, yeah, you got, I think, $5,000 for the fight up until the finals. Both guys got $5,000. So the key was if you won, you got another $5,000 because you got another fight. And then for the finals, it was $100,000 being split, 75 for the winner, 25 for the loser for the finals.
One more thing I want to mention is obviously.
And I'll tell you this about Merrill. Mark Shamrock told me, he goes, "Don't try to stand up with him," because I trained in the Lions Den for that up in Dallas. And Guy Mesger, who's 4-time kickboxing world champion, trained me. And he said, "Don't stand up with him. Do not." He said, "Your ego is going to tell you can stand up to him because you're so much bigger." He goes, "That guy is a world-class boxer. He was a Golden Gloves, New York champion." And so finally, right before the match, either Shamrock or Guy, I can't remember who it was, told me, he goes, "Okay, your ego, you're going to stand up with him. Promise me you don't get knocked out." And it's when you realize that he's going to hit you from angles that you don't see, he goes, "Start taking him down." And so sure enough, I stood up with him and he hit me with 6 or 7 punches. I saw every one of them coming, couldn't stop one of them. And I thought, you know what? I got to start taking this man down, because if this ends up on our feet, he's going to end up knocking me out.
There's one more thing. In the finals with Bart Gunn, we all know the situation. You get knocked down once, and then the referee, who's the blonde guy, the referee, I can't remember his name, who was doing it.
Jack Doan.
Jack Doan. He looks at you and says, "Are you okay?" And you're obviously not okay. And then he goes, "You're okay, get back out there." And it's like, bloody hell, I can't believe he sent you back out there for it.
I told Jack before the fight, if I ever go down, I said, if I can get up, don't stop it. And so, I told him that, and I didn't want to go out on my feet wobbly. If, Bart could knock me out, which he certainly could, and probably would have done it again if we'd have fought. Well, not probably would have done it again if we fought again. He hit beyond what I could take. I had no problem with that. I wanted to go out unconscious, and that's how, fighters should go out. Not that I was a fighter. It certainly showed that I probably wasn't a fighter, but that was probably because of the instructions I gave Jack before the match.
Out on your shield is the saying.
Yeah. No shame in getting knocked out by a guy like Bart. Bart's a good guy. Love Bart. Henry Godwin was a good guy. I didn't want to fight Henry. We were out there with gloves earlier in the day trying to figure out how to throw gloves, because neither one of us had ever put on gloves. We're sitting there punching each other in the afternoon, just trying to figure out how we're going to fight. Not that we're going to work it, we weren't, but we had no idea what we were doing.
The Bart Gunn hitting you, and that's when Butterbean was involved in all this.
Yeah. They ask us, and this is how stupid I was, or how stupid, everybody was. They asked us, they said, "Would you fight Butterbean or Tank after you fight Bart? The winner, would the winner fight Butterbean and Tank?" And I remember thinking, man, if I could beat Bart, I'll kill Butterbean. I remember I didn't know that, Butterbean had 100 pro fights. I just didn't realize the difference between just big, tough guy and a professional fighter, a big, tough professional fighter. So Shamrock and I snuck over and watched Butterbean warm up before that Bart fight. And he's hitting those pads so hard and so fast. I looked at Kenny and I said, Bart's in trouble, isn't he? And he goes, Bart's in a lot of trouble. And I talked to Butterbean afterwards, who's the nicest guy in the world. And he said, look, I had 100 pro fights. He goes, he was never going to touch me. He goes, that was just, it's not a fair fight. And, we didn't know the difference. We're just dumb guys thinking, hey, we're big, tough guys. We can match up with a guy like Butterbean. I'm so glad Bart knocked me out instead of Butterbean. I might not have woke up yet.
One last question. Didn't Butterbean offer to work in this?
Yes. Yeah. Apparently Butterbean called and said, hey,
I said no.
Yep. He said, what do you want me to do? And they go, what do you mean? He goes, and Butterbean offered to throw the fight. He thought it was a work. And they said, no, it's legit. And he goes, guys, he has no chance against me. I'm a pro fighter. Not that Bart's not tough and all that stuff. He is all of that. He said, I'm a professional trained fighter with 100 fights. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, we want you. We think Bart will be okay. And so, yeah, Butterbean did offer to, from my understanding, that Butterbean
That's
offered.
what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll tell you one other thing. When Bruce called me on Thursday, he said, you want to be in a shoot fight on Monday? I said, why would I be in a shoot fight? He goes, we're doing a shoot tournament. I said, why are we doing a shoot tournament? And he said, well, we think people might be interested. I said, well, is Shamrock and Severn in it? And he said, yeah. I go, do you think these guys won the UFC? And he goes, will you be in it? I goes, well, of course I'll be in it. I said, yeah, I'd be happy to, especially the $5,000. I said, you'll put me up against Henry Godwin the first match. And he goes, no, it's a shoot draw. And I said, no, it's not. And sure enough, I get there on Monday and I'm fighting Henry Godwin, just like I'd called. And Bruce to this day says that it was a legit draw, but I question that. I question the veracity of that claim.
I saw a clip on, and I'm going to plug again, Briscoe and Bradshaw podcast YouTube channel out as well, and I saw a clip from very recently with you interviewing Henry Godwin, and the clip was, hey, do you remember that time where you two, the Godwins, jumped us and we trashed the entire hotel room?
Yes, yeah, that was the old Howard Johnson's Dutch in Boston, that old dump hotel. God. And me and Barry Windham wake up one morning and the whole room is completely trashed. Completely destroyed. And Windham and I don't remember anything that happened. And Road Dogg has to come by and tell us, because you guys don't remember? I said, no, what happened? And we're so beat up. I didn't know if me and Barry had fought each other or what had happened. The Godwins had come down there to the cheap hotel, and those two big human beings had climbed through the window and jumped us while we were asleep and tore up the entire room. They used to do that all the time.
It's a good thing you got into wrestling. You'd probably be dead on the street doing some of that crazy stuff. So, wow. Hey, I learned some stuff today I never knew before. And John, I appreciate you being here. And I never told you this, but I really enjoyed traveling the roads with you, because traveling the roads with you was like almost a bonus. I laughed more with this guy, James, than I did with anybody else. We were perfect together, bullshit, and then more bullshit. And then we try to top each other, and it made the miles fly by. John, I appreciate it, and I wanted to get you out of here so you can get to your doctor appointment. I hope everything is well, and stay in contact with me and James. Love to have you back on.
Hey, love you, Dutch. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys having me on. James, big fan of what you guys do. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Take care.